Right, welcome to it is 5 o'clock now. Welcome to the Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee meeting. Calling the meeting to order. To begin with, do we have any public comment?
No, we do not.
Okay. And so with that, we will head right into committee business. And the first item on the agenda is Item A, approval of the February 14, 2023 minutes.
I approve the minutes for February 14, 2023 as written.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second? Second. It's been approved and seconded, or motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay. All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 The vote is unanimous. And on to item B, the 2022 Program Year Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, CAPER. And
Good evening.
All right, go ahead.
I just get to share. How do I,
There's just the other one.
why do we have win-win-win on here?
Would you mind introducing yourself? I don't think we've met.
Certainly. Just trying to find the right presentation. Good evening, my name is Patty Spalding Cluin. I am the Human Services Coordinator, and this is my counterpart.
Hi, I'm Kim Backrack, and I'm also a Human Services Coordinator.
And we're filling in for Sarah Bridgeford. She's out of town on a family emergency this evening, so she might be on, but I don't see her. We do
I know
have,
that she'd been hoping to be on, and we'd like to extend our condolences to Mary, or to Sarah and her family as well.
What happens if you go to slide 2? What's that?
perfect. How do we close this part? Right here?
Is that,
Perfect. Okay. All right. So Kim and I are here this evening to present the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, which is CAPER for short. And tonight before you, the policy question is, should the City Council approve the 2022 Program Year Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report? And first, I just need to say good evening, Chair Walsh, as well as Council President Kochmar and Deputy Mayor Honda and members of the council. I apologize for not addressing you first.
okay. Let me back up for just a moment. I failed to recognize that committee member Lydia Sefadossan is here with us, and committee member Erica Norton is joining us by Zoom. And we also have Deputy Mayor Honda and Council President Kochmar here with us today.
Thank you for your attention this evening. We appreciate that. All right, so the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report reports how the city utilizes CDBG, or Community Development Block Grant funds, to expand economic opportunities, preserve affordable housing, prevent and address homelessness, and establish and maintain suitable living environments. It also describes the accomplishments of the year January 1, 2022 through December 31st, 2022. And Kim is going to talk about some highlights.
A few highlights from the 2022 CAPER. In 2022, the program expended $485,607 in CDBG funds. We assisted 330 persons. The majority of the CDBG funds were used to assist very low to low income persons, with all funds supporting low to moderate income persons. While 100% of these funds are used to provide services and resources to persons with low to moderate incomes, meaning below 80% of AMI, most funding supports persons with incomes below 50% of AMI.
Our housing repair program completed 4 repairs with 4 additional repairs in progress. Highline College provided technical assistance to businesses, including established businesses and startups, and included both COVID response and general business technical assistance. The non-public service funds were used to complete 4 housing repairs, roofs, plumbing, heater, and technical assistance for 50 businesses. A couple projects did not meet performance targets. Housing repair experienced similar difficulties as to other recent years, including difficulty in getting contractors for projects and projects being ineligible due to scope, including ineligible maintenance or rehab work and overall cost exceeding the program limits. Additionally, a transitional housing unit acquisition from Fusion was delayed and will be complete this month, March 2023. These represent the areas in which performance was not met but should be met in 2023. Go ahead.
An additional key accomplishment. In 2022, 291 Federal Way residents with public services were provided. This included inclusion program, which provided services to 118 individuals with disabilities. This is a city program. It also included 4 employment and education programs offered by Apprenticeship for Non-Traditional Employment for Women, also known as ANEW, a multi-service center, Partner in Employment, and Orion provided services to 54 Federal Way residents. Fusion provided transitional housing with case management to 71 people. And within the COVID response, MSC provided eviction prevention to households, including a total of 41 individuals.
So moving forward, we've already had our public comment period, and it will conclude on March 21st. Our public services hearing happened at our last Human Services Commission on February 27th. Today, we are presenting to the committee and then requesting that it be moved forward to council, and we will submit no later than March 31st to HUD. As a reminder, CAPER is a mandatory report that we get to submit on an annual basis, telling them the good work that we do, the things that we have left to do, and our plans moving forward. Any questions?
Just one, with the, when the commission had the public hearing, was there any comments from the public?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Hey, go ahead, Lydia.
So I'll start with the first picture on your presentation, or the CAPER itself, the report.
Certainly.
And it still has Fawn's name as the CDBG coordinator?
Yes, because she was the coordinator in 2022.
Okay, so you don't need to change it.
Correct.
All right. What area is considered North Federal Way within the opportunity, what is it called? Do you know what area that is exactly?
I do not know. I
Okay.
apologize.
No worries.
But we can find out.
Okay, and for the PAC, the Section 108 loan
Correct.
is to serve low and moderate income population. Yet in the report, it says it has has returned to 5 full-time and 36 part-time employees. Are all of those within that income range?
I do not know the answer about whether or not the employees have to be in that range to low to moderate. It's that the dollars that the facility has access to low to moderate community members. Low to
Okay.
moderate income community members.
May I provide some clarification
Oh,
on that?
yes,
This is
Sarah. Hi, you're here.
Hi, Sarah.
Hello,
Okay.
Sarah.
Hi.
Hi, Sarah.
That's a tricky question, and Patty and Kim have not been with us long, and this project in particular, we haven't had a lot of movement. So the employment is actually a return to the pre-pandemic levels, so we're not including the income for those specific positions because the FTEs, it's a return to that original FTE level. So then what we're working on is tracking any future job growth either at the PAC or in the area that we would be tracking income that higher and then be reporting on that subsequently.
So this report has nothing to do with the Section 108 loan then?
It does. So that one sentence, it's really, no, it does. But because it's just a return to the prior FTE level, there are no new jobs to report low and moderate income on. If there's more job growth, then that's what we would be tracking that low mod job access for.
Okay.
This is like a return to baseline, what we've already reported in prior years. This just gets us back to that level.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
I did, but I don't remember where it is. Go ahead.
So, all right, I don't believe I have any other questions. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Sarah, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
So I thought that I thought we consolidated that loan and we paid it off.
Uh-oh. Did-
The section 108,
Did I-
didn't we do that? So if we did that, would we still have to have the jobs available? Did we not roll that into some other loan and pay that off?
Able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just imagining that I heard that.
I think we're having some technical difficulties.
Does our finance director have some?
Sarah Bridgeford, this is Steve Group, Finance Director. Can you hear me okay?
I can. I'm sorry. I think
That-
my connection
that-
cut out.
That's okay. I'm with the understanding that we still do have the Section 108 loan. Is this the same Section 108 loan that was connected to the Performing Arts Center?
Yes.
The new market tax credit?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not paid off yet.
Oh, okay. So I don't know where I saw that at. Okay,
All
so
the
never
parts
mind.
of the body coming together to answer a question here.
Awesome, thank you.
So, excuse me, is that the loan that was associated with the kitchen? Was that the loan associated with 3 million for the, using CDBG funds for the
I think so.
training for the kitchen?
I
That
believe
was
so.
the culinary
Yeah.
program. I'm
Yeah.
looking at Autumn.
Yeah,
I
that's
can
it. No, we got
clarify.
I
it
think so,
now.
I think so,
It is.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
May I clarify that the Section 108 loan was actually used specifically for architecture and engineering and the design elements of the TAC, but not for the kitchen. The new market tax credit and the lease and state funds for the kitchen.
Oh, okay. Don't worry, we're even talking about 106.
No.
Right.
So-
I guess our fear is that we don't want to have to end up paying something back if we're not following the guidelines. And so if the 108 is still in effect,
Yeah, and that goes through 2034.
what is,
Um,
what is
Our
that?
our Economic Development Director, Tanya Carter, has pulled some information along with Autumn, and we're going to be doing some outreach to businesses that are
You cut out again, Sarah. Right. Sarah, are you still with us? It seems as though we have lost Sarah. Any other questions for the staff that is here?
Thank you for the presentation.
All right,
You guys
yes,
did a good job.
yes, thank you for the presentation and welcome on board.
Thank you.
So, all right. Do we have a motion?
I move to forward the proposed 2022 CAPER to the March 21, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
2022?
Oh,
2020, March 21, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It is approved unanimously to go to the consent agenda. All right, and that takes us to item C, the update on the city venues financial report.
Good evening, Chair Walsh, Council President, Deputy Mayor, and Council. Finance Director Steve Groom is going to lead off, and then I'll follow up with but they're both on the same topic, but Steve's going to start us off, so.
Let's see if I can find, whoop. And the reason is when John's team and mine were working together to update the slides that were shown last time, there was quite, how do I move that? Oh, I know, share screen, there we go. I can do this? Yeah, I think that'll fold up in a sec. As we were putting together the slides, and they have updated it, and there's quite a focus on the subsidy for each of the fee-for-service programs that we run. I thought I am working on some material in the background that I would just love to share as a preface to the slides that they're going to show. Because when we tell the financial story of parks in a well-run city, I wanted to just go over the budget process, the financial management, the financial reporting, and then governance questions. And let's see if this is working. Because I think one of the questions that a council would ask, you know, you're asking high-level questions, kind of policy-level philosophical questions. How does a well-managed city demonstrate balancing tax-funded costs with user-funded costs when you're looking at the level of subsidy that each of these programs has? And I had a slide that I was working on that talks about the park's financial proposition as it relates to citizens, businesses, and I had a section on bondholders. And the reason I wanted to show it to you is because you are high-level governance folks, and I'm in a position where I'm going to be having to explain the city. If you were a credit analyst in San Francisco, if you were in Olympia and you were reviewing our bond package, we're going to be contemplating coming up in a year or so whenever we do the town center. Well, I would be presenting to someone who has never seen Federal Way, and the parks programs have actually a pretty large role to play. Because in this slide deck that I had, where I bring the financial foundation of the city, I would want to introduce the city, and I would start with if somebody hadn't been if somebody had never been here, well, where are we? I've got a little map of Washington State in the lower right-hand corner. We're in King County, south of Seattle, north of Tacoma, our transportation routes. We have a transit center. We have a light rail station coming soon. I would spend more time on that, but you all are completely familiar with this. As I explained the city, we're a mayor-council form of government. We have an elected mayor, city council, there's a city administrator. And then the principal departments of the city are on the right there. Ignoring the support departments, the main thing that the city provides to taxpayers is public safety, public works, parks and rec, municipal court, and planning. And as I explained the city, I have a map that's a very busy map, and this looks, to somebody who's not from here, this would be a lot of data to go over. But here are the public amenities that actually, I think, all of these are city-owned. The Performing Arts Center, Dumas Bay, Federal Way Community Center, public parks, lakes. I may be taking a liberty calling 3 lakes ours, but that's what we have. 8 public trails, wetlands, and then I'm not even sure if I should leave except for the police substations, this is all parks. This is all parks facilities under John's area. And then I also add that that because we have such a wonderful city, we've induced some private investment, and there's these things, Wild Waves, the Rhododendron Garden, the Bonsai Museum, Dash Point Park, and King County Aquatic Center. Those aren't ours, but the other things are. And as I want to talk about the financials of the city, I want to start by saying, meet the city. This is who we are. This is what we look like. And all of these pictures that are probably familiar to you, they wouldn't be familiar to somebody in San Francisco or Olympia or Chicago or whoever I might be talking on a Zoom call. But I think these do represent us well. Of course, it's putting our best foot forward, but we're proud of our parks. When I point out when I talk about our community center, here I have got so many pictures, there's a lot going on. There's one picture of the outside of the facility and the rest is all on the inside, and it's busy. There's a lot of citizen engagement going on. Okay, there's one empty meeting room. I can probably improve on that. I will throw in an obligatory slide on our city hall. Now, confession, if you're looking at that slide of our elected officials, it's out of date. I know I need to improve it. Before I show this publicly, I need to request that we get a new one. But we have a good-looking city hall. We have a good-looking city council chambers, a municipal court.
I was waiting for you to say we have a good-looking city council.
Moving right along. And then I come to our Performing Arts Center, and this one is an important slide if I'm talking to anybody where we're talking about TC3. However, on its own, this is I'm really pretty proud of this facility, and it really shows well, doesn't it? And I'm representing that this iconic feature is the foundation of our iconic town center, because I'm preparing for, kind of that presentation. But the whole point of this lands here, and this is a terrible slide. I know I have a camera on my phone. I can go out and take pictures of our town center myself if I need to. But the one in the upper left, the graphic design that's got the red circle around the Performing Arts Center, that really does show that our Performing Arts Center is an anchor of our town center that we're working on developing. So what am I bragging about on all these slides? I'm bragging about the parks facilities. And so I wanted to shore up Sean Hutton's sagging self-esteem, because he needs help with that, right? But then the next thing I would move into would be our economics, our sales tax, and everything that a credit analyst would have seen already. Well, now that they've seen the feel and the quality of our city, this would make sense that, sure, we have a growing, thriving economy. And I would say, okay, and here, by the way, is our top principal employers, and I've got a smattering of logos of all the retail support base that we have in our economy. I realize on the left side I've got 2 Walmart, and I've got, over on the right side, I've got Safeway 3 times. Well, that's because we have 2 Walmarts and we have 3 Safeways. We're just that kind of a quality city. So coming back to the question, how does a well-managed city demonstrate balancing tax-funded costs with user-funded costs? I wanted to point out that the citizens have a financial expectation of all of our parks programs, because our parks program does contribute to their property values, to the quality of life, at reasonable cost, available to all. It's one of the benefits of living here. If you're a resident, if you're a taxpayer, it's a benefit of living here, and parks plays a really large part of what defines living in Federal Way. Now, moving over to businesses, I think that our parks programs also are a really strong piece of what makes an attractive economy for businesses to come here, and it's part of the infrastructure support that they enjoy as part of their retail businesses. So then I get to bondholders, and then by now I've shown enough of what our city is about to represent pretty reasonably that we've got stable finances, we're a well-managed city, and we have a thriving economy. So when we look at the financial analysis of parks, we start with the budget. What the finance department asks all the park managers to do is start off with forecasting users. I'm not looking for dollars until I understand the volume of people that are coming to respond to what we're offering. It's incumbent upon them to be offering things that people want. Of course, that's their business, and finance doesn't want to tell them their business. We want to understand it. So looking at a forecast of users, then we can probably forecast expenses. A lot of them are fixed, but some of them are variable depending on supplies or things that you need to use for the various services that we offer. Once we've got our revenues and our expenses, we might want to adjust rates, or we might want to adjust the city commitment, but we want to make sure that that's secure. And then as we budget the whole city's budget, we make sure that all city funds are balanced. And that includes all of our fee-based programs. So that's where the subsidy comes from. It starts with the number of users we have and the expenses it takes to serve them. And then once we adopt the budget, here's my formula. The total cost of program expenses, we generally try to cover with user fees. However, because the goal is to maximize our citizen engagement, get the most number of people. I think of fitness gyms that want to charge whatever their monthly rate is, but they're better off if people don't show up. I think our community center genuinely does want people to show up, and that affects the expenses, and we want it that way. So for that reason, that's why it's in the city's best interest to subsidize, to provide city support. So then, once the budget is done, then what are we asking our program managers to do? We're asking them to engage the users, manage their expenses, maintain their facilities, and that's not a small thing, because we have an expectation. If you drive past a park or any of our facilities and you see something wrong, you're going to want to call it in and you're going to want it fixed, because we all have an expectation that they're going to take care of things, and they're going to look at me to make sure that I give them the budget to do that, I know. And then we ask them to report the results. And then what does finance do? If this was our FedRec committee, I'd say, well, of course, you know that finance brings you the revenue and the expenses, and we report those monthly. We also are watching our year-end fund balance, because we're not going to send a financial report to the auditors with any fund having a negative balance. Our fee-for-service programs particularly might be seasonal, and they might fluctuate, and they might have a pandemic that forces a change in the usage, and we have to course correct. So we're going to be updating our forecasts both in the current year. We're also going to be looking at what does this mean for next year's budget. So now John is going to come in and explain the financials. And I haven't given you anything with numbers, but what I wanted to bring was the context, the background, because all of his financial numbers, I wanted to make sure that he knew that I think it's important that they are explained in terms of user fees, user engagement, and expense management. Because ultimately, what's driving the expenses, what's driving the revenues, and how much the city subsidizes is explained with usage. And then the trends, of course, we're talking about the pandemic. I don't think you saw half of those slides I just showed, but too bad, I'm done. It's your turn. I hope that helped.
In the interest of everybody's time, Autumn is setting up the technology piece. We all appreciate that. We could have Valentine's Day version 2.0 if we don't. So thank you, as I've already greeted you this evening. Just want to make sure, if Steve, this whole finance thing doesn't work for Steve, he's got a bright future as a Parks Director. That was a commercial for the Parks Department. I loved it. So thank you, Steve. And now I have the uncomfortable portion about talking about numbers, which is not my most fun stuff, but I like it. So we'll start you off. This is a follow-up to our last meeting where you asked for more detail. And so we're going to start with Dumas Bay. And I do want to remind you that if we have deep financial questions that I can't get to an answer, I think I'll be able to answer all your questions. I have all the responsible managers here. David Clemens from Dumas Bay. I have Lee Fellsworth from the Federal Way Community Center, and Autumn Gressett from the PAC, as well as Stephen. And Brian is en route from Yakima today. He may or may not make it, so we told him to drive safely over the pass. So, as you know, because you've been at Dumas Bay many, many times, spectacular setting. You've seen this slide before, with the exception of the last line. David was happy to report that he's already at 75% of revenue expectation for 2023. So things are going well. So getting into the Dumas Bay chart here, same as we did before. We showed you 2018, 2019 pre-pandemic. We skipped 20 and 21 because it was just too depressing to put on paper with what happened during those years. It obviously crushed all three of these businesses, along with everything else worldwide. So we know that, you know that, so we don't need to begrudge that one too much longer. But as you can see, in 2018, the user fees are any earned revenue that Dumas Bay made. That was prior to David's management down there, but $886,000 in user fees. City support that year was $123,000, otherwise known as subsidy. And just a reminder as we move through this particular slide, same stuff in 19. Whereas you can see, there was no city support in 19. It was a great year. We did a fantastic job of earning revenue. 22, that is very obviously down, but it's down for a couple of reasons. One is post-pandemic, everything is getting people's confidence back to be in public settings, and that applies to all three of the facilities that we're speaking about tonight. So as you can see, their revenue was down, but there was a lot of confidence issues with the changing guidance. People just didn't have confidence to be out in the same numbers that they were out in before. The other thing that I need to point out to you as we get into 23, I'll point out in a moment, but as you can see, the subsidy was larger in 22. That makes perfect sense based on pandemic and the lower revenues. But as I just told you, he's at 75% of his revenue expectation already for this year, so that's a fantastic indicator with 3/4 of the year in front of us, more than 3/4 of the year in front of us, that it's pretty likely assumption that he should blow by his 23 expectation. The other thing that I need to point out here on 23, because it's probably catching your eye about now, is you'll notice that there is a difference in model. As you know, you approved for us at 2 recent council meetings a change in how we do our food portion of Dumas Bay. So we used to have an in-house chef. We went away from that, hired a caterer, an exclusive caterer that works for us, and then we recently did another change as we've kind of worked our way through the business with the new caterer, that decision was made, business decision by David and his staff, along with the caterer, that it was better for our staff, Dumas Bay staff, to handle the customer service portion, the upfront stuff with the customer regarding food buying and purchasing and planning, and then our staff, relays that to the caterer directly, and she's able to better do what she does best, which is perform the service of the food and the presentation and all of that. So as you can see, Dumas Bay is doing well. That planned subsidy of $628,000 will likely go down as his revenues go up. With the old model, obviously, we had to take into account a full-time chef and that salary and benefits. Also, some help in the kitchen that we no longer have to provide at that level. We still do the continental breakfast, so there is some help in the kitchen, but not nearly what we had with the chef model. And obviously, the cost of food is, you all grocery shop. Steve just put out a thing today that it's what cost you $100 just a year ago, less than a year ago, is now $111 in any situation. So everything is way up, as we all know, because we all grocery shop too. So that will conclude Dumas Bay. I'll open this up to questions on any particular facility. They'll all be here. I know I was very long-winded the last time, and I'm trying to be conscious of that for you. So our next facility is the Federal Way Community Center. It is awesome. I did had them put in a couple of slides. We think we're the second busiest building in Federal Way. That's our best guess, and I think that's right behind Costco. We think we have more visitors through the door than anybody but Costco, except for like a high school where kids have to go to school. So this is by choice, people walking through our front doors, in excess of 1,500 people a day, which is a pretty astonishing number. That equals 532 visitors a year, and 7.9 million people have been through the front doors of that community center. So it is a phenomenal success. With that, same numbers as we put in for Dumas Bay. As you can see, in 18, we made 1.9, in 19, 1.7, in 22, big drop post-COVID, same concerns, lack of confidence, or rising confidence after the pandemic. And this year's budget, our budget expectation is 1.9. So the other revenues include things like grants sometimes. You can see in 22 that $250,000 in other revenue. That was the grant for the slide repair. City support is the next line down, or the subsidy. You'll notice in 22 it's a much larger number at 1.63 million. That is again a direct reflection of lower revenues and post-pandemic. We anticipate that to go way down this year. I have some good news to report on this particular slide. This is absolutely fresh off the presses. Since December of '22, just since December 1st of '22, and through yesterday, we have added 1,127 new members at the community center. That is an astonishing number. Kudos to Leaf and his staff that have worked hard together to get that going. People they were afraid to go into a fitness facility for a long time, and now they're regaining their confidence. We've done some tremendous outreach, and that is a tremendous number. There's also an industry standard that you need to know about that, generally speaking, for a fitness facility, kind of like the community center, there's kind of the benchmark that you're looking for is at least 2,000 members. Direct deposit right out of their bank directly to the city. 2,000 is about where you kind of need to be for sustainability. We are now well over 2,000 members. With those numbers, we're well over 2,000 and going strong. We picked up 300 plus members already this month, and we're only on the 14th or 15th. So
With that 1,000 plus members since December, what percentage is that? What percentage increase do you have that?
I don't know, but I can get that answer for you. It's a big number. And obviously, I mean, full disclosure, since you're going to put me on the spot, council member, chair, there are some New Year's resolutions that are expected every year. Everybody looks at the scale December 1st and goes, oh boy, I got to make some changes. And they go, I'll wait until the holidays are over. But we did pick up a lot during December and a tremendous amount in January, more than we've ever had in a January since we've been open in 16 years. And then we're already off to a roaring start in March. So I think it's a combination of several things, a confidence level of getting back. So that is where we're at on the Federal Way Community Center. Moving to the Performing Arts Center, they have been averaging 15 events per month since opening day, and those numbers are going up daily. They had another sold-out show this weekend. They had 3 sellout shows in the last 8-10 days, so things are definitely picking up. They are booking another Grammy-winning artist for July, Robert Cray, who is fantastic. I've seen him at the PAC, and he's terrific. So lots of good news to report at the PAC. So moving to their same exact financial chart, as you can see in 2018, that was when we ran it in-house, prior to Spectra, now Oakview. And Spectra and Oakview are the same company. They just changed during the spot. So as you can see, we made $225,000 in earned revenue in 2018. Pretty poor year, but it was brand new. We get that. So, but in 19, we had made the change to hiring Spectra, who's done a fantastic job, and you can see the spike in sales there between 225 and 983. Again, they improved. We skipped 20 and 21 for pandemic. But in 22, you can see $1.2 million in shows. So there's no arguing that they're definitely, the word's getting out about the PAC. Oakview has done a great job. And in 23, the budget expectation is 943. As I just told you, we've had sellout shows. We're doing great. The word is out. We're getting great reviews. We had a recent review from a person that we didn't book for a wedding. We couldn't close the deal. Probably the nicest letter I've ever seen written from a person who thanked Oakview Group and Brian and his staff for all the extra work they went to. They ended up choosing a hotel because Grandma and Grandpa on both sides needed to be able to get directly from the ballroom where it was going to happen to their hotel room, and they just didn't feel safe. Not safe, it was their own family health that made them make that choice. But this person's in the business, in the venue management business, and I'm happy to share that letter with you after tonight and show you their level. They proclaimed that even though they're in the business, they felt like the PAC is the very best value for what we have to offer, the very best value in the area, and they really wish they could have chosen us. Unfortunately, their own family's health condition prevented them from doing it, and that had nothing to do with that. But they wrote that letter unsolicited to Brian and his staff, thanking him for all the effort. So it just tells you the kind of service that Brian and his staff are providing over there, and that the word is getting out. So,
Hey,
as
John,
you can see, yes.
real quick question on this one. The user fees, 2022, 1.2 million. In 2023, it's down. I mean, it seems like it would be still climbing up
Well,
rather than going down.
That was actual in '22, and that's projected in '23. I believe, and Autumn, if Brian gets here, if Steven's here, Brian's number 2 at the PAC, I believe we'll do better than that. But that was the budget when we wrote the budget. So,
Okay.
Well, we want to create budgets that we can attain, under promise, over deliver.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So, yeah, and we try to be fairly aggressive, but you don't want to come in under budget either, especially if you've had a good year. So with that, moving to the last slide, and then we'll entertain questions from anybody. So Celebration Park Sports Complex is awesome. I appreciate Council President Kochmar's engagement on helping us get artificial turf fields out there. These numbers will dramatically improve if we were to get artificial turf over there. Obviously, the more artificial turf, the better the numbers get from a standpoint of economic development, user fees, bringing more heads and beds into the community, and then just solid playability. You can play literally because there's really no houses that closely border Celebration Park. We could potentially play 24 hours a day. And on artificial turf fields, you still have to maintain them, but it's a much lesser maintenance than it is on a natural grass field that in the Northwest is closed 5 to 6 months a year because you can't play on it. You just tear it to shreds. So with artificial turf, we can literally play year-round, 365. The only thing that stops play on an artificial field is buildup of snow, and we don't have a lot of buildup of snow. That's the only thing that'll stop a soccer game, and lightning. Those are the two things that'll stop a soccer game. They will play through cold, wet, hot. They'll play through that on artificial turf, where we can't do that on natural grass. So as you can see, 600,000 attendees at the events that we have hosted there over the years. So Celebration Park is awesome and would be even better with artificial turf. So here are, obviously the park is a completely different animal than the community center or Dumas Bay or the PAC, in that while we do charge user fees for tournament rentals or practices or individual games, you can see that in 18 we did about $100,000. That money all goes directly into the general fund. So it's booked through recreation, general fund program. And as you can see, in 19, went down a bit. In 22, up a little, but down still from 18. And we expect about 91,000 this year. Hopefully we'll do even better. A lot of things happen around that's variables. But we anticipate those numbers only to get better. But really, the park's never designed to make money. Those user fees help offset the extra maintenance that it takes to maintain a world-class grass sports complex. So with that, just the conclusion is, and Steve kind of stole my thunder here, but Parks and Recreation facilities are really the heartbeat that keeps us going. We call ourselves the good news department. Not every department gets to be good news. When news comes out of the police department, often it's not wonderful. A lot of times it is wonderful and wildly important, and we need safety and we need great roads, but we also need great parks and facilities. And that's what really does a lot. And Steve had a lot of my talking points in his PowerPoint, so I won't talk about too many of them. But one of the things that Steve did mention is that property values go up. Did you know that the closer you live to a park, the property value goes up dramatically? That's proven fact. So that's a really cool thing. We talked about how we increase well-being and wellness throughout the city. And this one last thought before we get to questions is that as far as we know, about 90% or more of the city published photographs that are out there in any kind of marketing, whether it's on Facebook or in the newspaper, hanging on the walls here, anywhere that you see a city photograph, over 90% feature either a park or a parks maintained facility. So, and every one of Steve's photos, but if you walk down the hall, almost every single event happens at a park. Almost every single event happens at one of the facilities that we maintain, whether it's Dumas Bay or the PAC, Federal Way Community Center, City Hall, Steel Lake Park, we've got lots of pictures up of, Celebration Park, there's lots of pictures. That says a lot. We brag about it, we collectively, you, us, all of us brag collectively with pride of what we have to offer and how we change citizens' lives. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. If there's nothing I can answer, if there's something I can't answer, I will not hesitate to phone a friend. So with that,
All right. First off, I'd like to thank you for the presentation, both of you, for the presentation, and I think that we all appreciate the showing the fees, versus the subsidy, and that gives us a much better picture of it. And thank you very much for that. I have some more questions, but first to Councilmember Assefa Dawson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Just a quick question, when you're talking about the parks, especially Celebration Park. So are we always subsidizing and there's no revenue, it's not revenue generating for the city?
again, on that top of that slide, it showed user fees. Those
Yeah.
were tournament rentals, any game rentals, anything any special event that would happen there. Those, yes, we do collect fees for user fees, but in the end, it's a park. And so that money is dropped right back into the,
Right.
to the general fund, and the general fund supports all the parks, not just Celebration.
Maybe you can go back to that slide. With
Yeah, but the city subsidy is over 300,000 or so, so I'm just asking if, yeah. So maybe it doesn't generate, and it's not intended to generate income for the city, correct?
And I wouldn't even call that a subsidy, because I think that the intent is that most cities fund all of their parks, except for what they can draw from user fees from classes and events. That's pretty typical.
That's basically my question. So
Yeah.
we don't expect it to generate
No,
in any form or shape?
no.
Okay.
But,
If you live here, you can use it, right?
yeah, absolutely. But to Council President Kochmar's efforts, these numbers would go dramatically up. Because remember, we're generating this in 5 to 6 months. Now, we're talking about a much longer day and 365 days a year. And the demand is absolutely there. So there's zero question the demand is absolutely there. People can't wait to pay. And also the associated costs, watering, aeration, fertilization, mowing, on anything that's field turf, we don't do that. There is some maintenance. It's not maintenance free by any means, but it's a lot less maintenance.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, question, and I think that this would be more for Director Groom. He looked too content looking down over there. So, for example, is there any way to calculate the infusion into the economy by, for example, the parks? I mean, there obviously 91,000 user fees, that represents a lot of people. Some of them would have been locals here anyway, others would have been coming to the city. Is there, and so so the city budget has gained 91,000 from that. Is there any way at all, any calculations on how much it infuses into the local economy?
I'm happy to start, Steve, if it's okay. So the best way I know is heads and beds. That's the most quick way to do it. And there used to be a formula that showed how much for a softball tournament, for example. For a 3-day tournament, if you start on Friday night and you play Saturday and Sunday, you would calculate the amount of heads and beds. And for 3-day tournaments, you're almost guaranteeing a lot of non-local players because people will travel, especially to a facility like Celebration Park. When we built Celebration Park, it was absolutely the very best facility in the state of Washington. Since then, a few other parks have been built that are good, and one, I don't think it's better, but it's all field turf, and it's in Lacey. It's called the Rack. And the Rack is all field turf, and so they're playing softball tournaments in December. We're long since locked up in December because it's cold and wet, and we can't play on natural grass. But that's the best way. And there's a calculation for gas, all in that for visitors that come to town, that talks about meals and gas and shopping and other recreation, if they see a movie, depending on all of those factors, get an ice cream, whatever, if it's kids, if it's adults. So Steve may have more to add.
And that's lodging tax, which is just, I would characterize that as sports tourism, which is just a component of parks. Because I think there's a metric that's unrelated to revenue, but the quality of life when cities are often compared, they look at park acres compared to the total square miles of the city, and that's a quality of life measure. I don't think it's associated with revenue, though, but I would like it to be, because I feel like the city is a better city. People are more inclined to live here, be happier living here, and the businesses, it's an indicator of quality, but I don't know how to quantify it with revenue.
Okay,
You stumped me, technically.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Right. Any other questions? Eric, any questions from you?
No,
No? Okay.
thank you for asking.
All right. John, Steve, or Director Hutton, Director Groom, and Autumn, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate the time. All right.
All right. I will just comment that today I was up at the Seattle Convention Center, and I was delighted to see the booths where tomorrow and Thursday our Parks Department is going to be represented with facilities to market our Dumas Bay Center and PAC and Community Center.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And with that, the next item on the agenda, a discussion of the modified fireworks ban. And looks like that we have somebody that will, what is your name?
Good evening. My name is Katrina Doan, and I want to thank you for having me back here. I presented during public comment about 3 weeks ago. And I came back to answer questions. I do have a slide presentation that I sent in. I'm hoping it will pop up here in a moment.
It won't. Somebody can,
Is,
how to do it. Can somebody help her? I know, I wanted to catch her.
Autumn, come back.
She gone, found out.
Want me to stick my head out?
And what's his name is not there.
Chair Walsh,
Yes.
since this item was placed on the agenda as an item for discussion by the committee, we don't actually have anybody listed as a presenter. So you can certainly adjust the agenda if you wish, but
Can we invite somebody to?
absolutely. I just want to
comment?
make sure that we
Okay.
have it on the record that you're
Okay.
inviting
All right.
someone.
Yeah,
so that we can
I
have
wasn't
it-
aware that there was going to be.
Sure.
And what is your name once again?
My name is Katrina Doan. Last name is spelled D as in dog, O-H-N.
Okay. Yeah, so I would like to invite her to comment then, so.
Absolutely. I just wanted to make sure that we were noting everything on the
Okay.
record appropriately. So thank you.
I sent it, yes, Lydia sent it. It popped up on the first presenter, it popped up on their first screen somehow.
That one.
There it is.
Just use your arrows left and right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Now she wants over.
Yeah, hey,
Thank you.
every meeting
Autumn.
needs an autumn. That is very necessary.
So,
So-
so Katrina, go ahead.
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted me to present first, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to tell you a little story about how I stand here talking about this solution. It's not often that we get to talk about a possible win-win-win for a solution, for an issue that plagues every community in our region. Back in the early 90s, I was a school teacher, a new school teacher, and I took in one of my students as a foster child. And she ended up being a very talented gymnast, which was wonderful. but I was a new teacher and I had no idea how I was going to pay for this. And another teacher had a daughter on the same team, and he called me one day and he said, Katrina, we run a fireworks stand to pay for Caitlin's gymnastics. Why don't you come help us? And I still remember my answer. I said, I don't know anything about fireworks and I'm scared of them. He said, just get out here and help us. So I did, and to use a bad pun, I had a blast. So fast forward, I ran a fireworks stand for 29 years. And 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to become the area manager for TNT Fireworks. And when I asked what the job was year-round, they said, your main job is interacting with nonprofit groups to help them raise money to continue the good work that they're doing in their communities. And I said, sold. That's my passion. Well, I quickly discovered a second passion, and that is what I'm here presenting. Because as I've told people about my job, oh, fireworks, this problem, that problem, very few people know that there is a solution that is in between allowing everything and banning everything, because neither of those work. If you talk to anybody, I've never heard anybody say, oh yeah, once we banned, everything was better in our community. So I'd love to share with you some background. Let's see, she said to use the arrow key, but it's not working. Let's see. There we go. As you talk to people about fireworks, I always ask people, what do you hate about fireworks? When they say, what are you doing working for fireworks? I hate them. I don't like the loud ones. They scare my dog, my kids, me. And I don't like the ones that fly around. I'm afraid they're going to light my house on fire. And I say, I agree. I don't care for those either. But then we have families that love to do a traditional fireworks display, a safe one in their neighborhood. And as I mentioned, nonprofits generate a huge deal of their budget from a fireworks fundraiser. And this is the unique piece, being where we live. We are surrounded by native reservations where both legal and illegal fireworks are sold, regardless of municipality bans. And the bottom line is data shows fireworks bans have not stopped the use of fireworks. So how do we do a win-win-win in all of these? This is just a quote from Sumner that reinforces, first of all, they were looking at this issue and they said, you know, it's confirmed that even in cities with bans, the issue is still just as large. In other words, the data shows a ban doesn't lead to a quieter, safer holiday. Is there a solution? I believe there is, and this has become my secondary passion, is sharing this with cities. A modified ban, and I'll tell you what that is about. It's a balanced course of action. It's not on one end or the other. What happens in a modified ban is that ground-based fireworks are allowed to be sold. Ground-based, if you know fireworks, are things that don't move. They don't come off the ground, they don't go in the air, and they don't go boom. Fountains that sit and do the pretty in front of you, the kid novelty stuff, the tanks, the trucks, all the things that, the snakes that some of us remember from childhood, those are allowed to be sold at neighborhood stands and tents. That sale is paired with a very robust safety campaign. One that we used in a community I'm going to tell you about in a little bit is, you know, boundaries, brace, and bucket. And I'll talk about that. But here's the key. The aerial and the loud things that people complain about are still banned. That doesn't change. Enforcement doesn't change. They're still illegal. And by the way, if you want to jump in and ask questions or stop me and ask questions, I don't like being totally a talking head, so please.
How long do you think the presentation will be?
Not terribly long.
Okay, all
It's
right, okay.
just a few. What is the time frame? I don't want to take more than my time. How are we?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, okay, it's not too long. So just real quickly, how is it a win-win-win? For those that are opposed to fireworks and noise, the things they don't like are still banned. Nothing changes for them. Families and neighborhoods can enjoy a fireworks show, and your nonprofit groups who are really hurting for funding, since, especially after COVID, they can make that money to keep their good work going. So no matter where you come at the fireworks issue, it's a win. Additional wins. The city maintains control over what's accessible. One of the communities that has done this did an informal study, and they found that 90% of residents will purchase fireworks at the stand nearest to them. So you are controlling, in a sense, what 90% of your people are buying. Does it stop everything that we don't like? No. There's going to be some people who still go buy the loud ones. We know that. TNT has worked very hard on environmental friendliness. The amount of plastics is almost completely gone. Environmentally friendly fillers, decreased overall amount of packaging. And then a community education piece, just helping people understand. Most people don't know the difference between illegal fireworks, full C, which is everything legal, and safe and sane, which is ground-based. Auburn has done this for years. They use a phrase, if it goes up or blows up, it's illegal in Auburn. Easy and clear. If you see fireworks above your head, they're not the ones that are legal. If you hear a boom in your neighborhood, not legal. This is a flyer that Mount Vernon uses to show people the difference. They've worked on educating their folks. This is City of Snoqualmie, also just their education flyer. This is the safety campaign that Tukwila used last year, just to make it very clear, and they did it in pictorial form for people, non-English speakers, to make it very, very clear. And this is, have a bucket, brace your fireworks so they can't tip over, have boundaries, and just don't, too close. So, Tukwila, last year, I approached the Tukwila mayor and said, Mayor Eckberg, some people have asked me to share this with you. What would you think of this idea? And he looked at me and he said, Katrina, I support you 100%. He said, we've had a 25-year trial period with a ban and we know it doesn't work. We got to try something different. He said, I was on the council when we banned. Everybody was banning. We know it hasn't worked. So I worked with the council members, met with them, shared this same information, and on April 18th last year, they passed unanimously a motion to implement a modified ban and take data. What they found after the season, the police chief and the fire chief did a postseason report. They said it was the lowest number of calls for service in over 20 years. There were 0 fireworks fires, 0 fireworks injuries, and $45,000 was raised for nonprofits in that week. Transformed one of the elementary schools, which if I had time, I would tell you the story. But the result is it's a win-win-win. And I have just become passionate about sharing that with cities. I think we're going to see this tide continuing to turn. I have several cities who have reached out and are in the process, as you are, of examining this option. Because as everybody says, bans just, there's no data that tells us they work. People are still stressed, and if we can reduce stress in the city, I would love to work with you to help you do that. And I'd be happy to answer questions or share any other information.
Right. Councilmember Rasefa Dawson.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the presentation, and I requested that it come to this committee at the last presentation because I've talked to the various cities, like Tukwila and SeaTac, and I got good feedback from both of them. My question is, are you a vendor then?
TNT is the #1 vendor in the state of Washington. We do most of the fireworks stands and tents in the area. There's a couple of small vendors.
So if we were to go this route, I mean, we need to talk to our police department
Right.
and everybody, right? Do we need to do an RFP and how does that work?
So we actually have this within our city code. The fireworks ban, it has been passed by the council
Right.
years ago. And so in order for any changes to be made to that, there would have to be an ordinance. It would have to be written, it'd have to be drafted, presented to this committee, and then ultimately presented to the council for approval. And additionally, state law requires that under RCW 70.77.250, for those of you listening in, that any ordinances that are adopted by a county or a city that are more restrictive than state law have to have an effective date no sooner than 1 year after their adoption. So that means if there was any changes to that ordinance that is less than what the allowances under state law are, that's more restrictive than state law, then we'd have to have a 1-year waiting period for any of those changes to become effective, if that makes sense.
Are we being more restrictive or less restrictive?
We are more restrictive. We cannot be less restrictive than state law.
Okay.
So state law is the floor. We can't go beneath that. But if we wanted to be more restrictive, we can set the ceiling. Currently, our ceiling is nothing, right?
Okay.
So if we were to come anywhere between the floor and the ceiling now, we still have to wait a year.
Okay,
So,
okay.
So, I think that really the decision for us then is whether we want staff to investigate. I mean, basically, we need feedback from the police, from the fire department, from South King Fire,
Right.
and consultation with the legal staff to see whether we want to consider a change.
So,
And then if we have the, that information and talk to other cities, and then we could consider.
so, may I ask a question, John? So we're talking about policy, and what's happening here is we're having, nothing against you, Katrina, you're a very, very nice presentation, thank you. And you're a very pleasant person, thank you. But what we're having is people coming to our council meetings, making business proposals to something that should be going through staff, because we have to be fair to everyone. We have to be fair to, and we always go through a bid process.
so
And-
th-
That was my question, by the way. so-
Sure.
yeah.
sorry, I just want to make sure that we're being very clear here.
Yeah.
So this wouldn't be for any particular vendor or anything,
Right.
and this is not being proposed by staff. This is certainly, this is
But-
just a presentation tonight.
My
The-
point is, before we even get to this kind of a presentation, because normally this would be something we would hear in a comment, which we did, thank you. But maybe, rather than coming to a committee, maybe it needs to be something that staff would review to see whether we want to change our policy, and then talk to perhaps the committee chair to see if there wants to be a discussion on changing the policy before we get to the particulars. And so I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm just trying to talk about it because you're not the only one, Katrina. We've had other presentations. So I'm just wondering, maybe we need to make it clearer about how our presentation should be made and how it's fair to everybody, and so that they realize they really have to go through staff and talk about how government works and that what the bid process is, because obviously people are coming thinking that they, not you maybe, that they could perhaps convince the council to move forward with their proposal, whatever it may be. And
So-
that's not the way it should work.
Yeah, with this one, I don't think there'd be any bid process
No.
to begin with, because it would just.
Yeah, I know,
it'd
but
be,
it's still, it's the
be,
policy issue.
An ordinance change, not
So
a.
just so, I just want to be very clear about something. So none of the staff sitting at the dais tonight had any idea that there was going to be a presentation tonight.
And neither did I.
So we didn't have this in advance, so I think there was some miscommunication, which is fine.
No, I was clear when I said, can we have this presentation at this committee, and you said yes.
Oh, okay, I thought it
But-
was just simply a discussion, committee discussion, not a presentation.
So, and I'm not blaming, I'm just saying, therefore, in my mind, this is what I had in mind. So, it's and I didn't do the proposal, I left it up to you, so
Okay.
it's a miscommunication
Okay,
between you
no,
and I.
and
So
that's
no
fine,
blame
and
here.
that's fine.
So,
So-
but then we have people coming from the community who normally would be in a comment period, coming to make a presentation that's something that staff would do. And so we just need to get clearer about how this process should work. And maybe we ourselves need to be more clear about that. We just need to be fair with everybody. That's our goal.
I 100% do not disagree with you whatsoever. I think that the part of the reason, there was definitely some miscommunication here, and my comment earlier to the chair stating that this was an item for discussion by the committee only, that there hadn't been anything placed on the agenda for a particular presenter, was geared towards if we are going to be inviting someone to come in, we would have to amend the agenda and have that on the record to show that that is in fact what is occurring. So I think what we need to be clear on is what the process is for bringing things to the committee, and that needs to happen prior to and be brought to the chair for the agenda setting. And I think that there was some other questions about that earlier on before the meeting started too by other folks too. So I think having that clarity would be good. And also, just Council President Kochmar, I just want to be very clear. This is not a bid, this is not a business pitch at all. This would be, if the council decided to change the law, which is essentially what this is, then that would have to be done via an ordinance. This is not something that would go out for bid. This is not a business proposal. Though it would, I'm going to state just for everybody here, obviously have some impacts to businesses, why we have interested parties. So I'll state that there, and I will be quiet. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer.
So I do have a question. And I apologize, I'm not, I think it's a matter of not understanding the procedure, so now I get it. So when you say it would take a year, though, if we were to do all this, right? What does a year look like? Would it be like next June of 2024?
That depends upon when and if an ordinance was passed by the council to
Right.
change the city's code.
Right.
So whenever that occurs, if it occurs.
Yeah.
Then the one-year clock would start from that date.
Got it.
So hypothetically speaking, if the committee and the council decided that this is something they wanted to take up and change after we have conversations and have the fire marshal discussion and whatnot, and the chief of police, et cetera, if that were something to go forward, it would be brought through committee. Let's say, for instance, okay, we have it, miracle of miracles happens, and we have it in the next committee. Then that would be brought to city council meeting after that, at which point, if the city council were to approve it, that would go through the normal ordinance review and voting process. It would not be happening until at least, at the extreme earliest, and this is all hypothetical.
Yeah.
Probably until May of next year. So May of 2024. So
Got it.
again, that is just a process on how that would operate. How things get presented to this committee and get placed on the agenda as a separate item.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think we can have that conversation as well. I'd love to have that conversation.
All right,
But
Katrina, thank you for your presentation.
You were very good.
Can I share, can I add 2 more comments, or is that okay?
Okay, very quickly.
Very quickly. If your police or fire or mayor want to talk, the city of Tukwila has said they are happy to talk with anybody. The police chief, they were super happy with it. Second, the interpretation, I would love to talk between the attorneys. The interpretation they got, the reason for the 1-year waiting period is so that the rug isn't yanked out from under nonprofits who are currently doing a stand, so a city can't ban in May when they've planned their budget for a July fireworks stand. So Tukwila last year passed the new ordinance on April 18th, and they sold last summer because it wasn't considered, they weren't restricting it more, so they were killing their nonprofits, which is the purpose for that 1 year. So they were able to, they did public comment, I came to committees, they drafted the new ordinance, they voted on it in April, and 4 stands operated in July in Tukwila. So it'd be an interesting, it's such a funny worded ordinance. There's always a lot of question about that. So I just wanted to share how Tuckwilla's process went.
All right. Right. Okay, thank you. So, I guess that we need to just decide whether we want to ask staff to do more research on it.
So since this is an item for discussion only, there is no voting that occurs
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
So that would have to be a conversation that would occur now, another time, or whenever.
Okay.
So.
All right.
So, would you be on the agenda setting meeting that's coming up? You're on the agenda setting meetings,
yeah,
right? Okay. Why don't you bring that topic up at the agenda setting meetings?
Okay,
Okay, see if there is any interest.
okay. All right, thank you. And
Did Erica add her?
And Erica, didn't add the,
I was waiting for an opportunity to do that.
okay.
I'm making a motion that we open discussion on the RFP. That you told me that you would put it on the agenda for today to have a discussion about the RFP for the drug addicted homeless situation that is going on in our city. And it was not put on the agenda, so I'm asking that I make a motion that we have a discussion about creating an RFP to do a study on a drug addicted homeless program.
I appreciate,
Do we
Yeah,
need to second that just for the conversation at least?
you can do.
Okay, I'll second for the, yeah. Let's
Thank you, Lydia.
All right, so let's have discussion then.
But before we go on to saying we're going to do an RFP, we don't even know, I think, Erica, we talked about maybe having a little more discussion on the whole
That's what we're doing
topic.
right now,
But the
Linda.
RFP would be, moving forward. but the discussion.
Yes,
But the
that's
discussion needs,
exactly what we're doing. And Linda,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I understand that AstroTurf and fireworks are really important to everyone, but we have a serious issue in our city, and ignoring it and kicking the can down the road isn't going to fix it. We have a drug addicted homeless problem in Federal Way. Actually, it's a nationwide problem, and we're not doing anything to address it. So all I'm asking is, may we please have a discussion about the RFP? I sent everyone who is sitting up on the dais right now a very clear outline of the program. It's simple, it's easy to read, and it's an outline for the RFP.
so, and thank you very much, Erica, and I did read that. So, but my suggestion for the next meeting, your next committee meeting, would be, because right now we only have 3 of us here.
And you know who's here? Everyone on the committee,
Yes,
Linda.
ma'am. So.
You're not on the committee. You're just trying to run it right now, and it's very irritating.
I'll let the
So can
committee.
we have a committee meeting, please? Is that okay if we actually have an actual committee meeting without you running it?
You know, with,
Jesus.
okay, yeah. Lydia, you had seconded the motion. I'm not, what exactly was the motion to begin with?
To discuss the RFP procedures. I sent you an outline of it, and I'm trying to get motion going with the presentation that I made last month. It was not added to the agenda for today. You told me you would put it on the agenda, and it's not on the agenda. We're talking about fireworks and AstroTurf.
Councilmember Norton, this is Joanna Idy. I just want to make sure I'm clear on what the request is. So can I repeat it back to you, and you let me know whether or not this is accurate? So my understanding is that you made a motion to add a discussion item onto the agenda regarding a potential RFP for drug-addicted homeless people. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
So I made a presentation about a month ago asking to have funding set aside from the opioid settlement. I asked to have that put aside so that we could get a study to see what we could do about helping the homeless drug addicts in our community find sobriety and permanent recovery.
And I hear you. I just want to make sure I'm understanding the motion correctly, and so that we can potentially have that discussion considered tonight. So I think I just want to clarify everything so that we know what's happening.
Yeah.
And I understand, Councilmember Asefa Dawson, did you second? Okay, so then at that point, then the decision would be, do we have this discussion? And that's for the committee to decide.
Correct.
I thought we already decided that.
The motion was to have the discussion.
Yeah,
And so
correct.
there's been a motion and a second, and we were discussing that motion, not discussing the results of that motion.
Correct, sorry,
And
and
so-
I'm sorry, Councilmember Norton, Chair Walsh had looked over to me to try to clarify what the motion was, so that's only what I was trying to do, no disrespect intended.
No. All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion to continue to have the discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So.
Thank
motion
you.
carries. So now we're having that discussion.
Okay, so may I please read just very quickly what the outline is and ask you if that's something that you think that is feasible for us to work on in the interim between now and the next Parks meeting. Okay, so for example, Jack, you or Chairman Walsh, you wanted to create a new shopping cart ordinance. And you spent time with Councilmember Dubby going through the options, and then you made a motion to have this ordinance created. And so what I'd like to do is spend time discussing this outline and getting input from the rest of the committee on what we can do to create an RFP so that these funds can be used and direct staff to find an organization to put together a program. So it's exactly as my my presentation last month. It follows directly in line with it. So it would be 4 phases: recruitment, detox, treatment, and job training. Job training also includes permanent supportive housing. That's it. That's what I wanted to discuss.
What is the, I guess this would be a question for staff. What is the procedure for putting an RFP together or something like that?
Our next
I
steps.
mean, is that a Sarah Bridgeford question, and she's not here now, and
Yeah, she isn't here now. I think there would have to be a conversation offline with staff about potentially pulling that together, but also with the mayor, since the mayor is the individual that directs staff work, to look at whether or not we wanted to go out for an RFP for these types of services. And it would be a general thing, not geared towards any particular vendor per se, any particular contractor. And then at that point, staff would pull together, if that were something that were to be approved, then staff would pull together that information and bring it forward to the committee for their consideration, for approving whether or not it goes to council to then approve to actually put the RFP out for bids.
So who takes it to the mayor?
So if there was something that wanted to be, that the council wanted to have, then the council member would take it to the mayor. Generally, that is usually what happens, but there also might be some other avenues too. But that's usually the way that it goes.
Yeah, so does it have to go to the chair, or can Erica do it, or that's my question. Is it one person? Does it have to be more than one? Do you know?
It doesn't have to
I've
be.
never done it, so I just want to ask that
It doesn't
question for
necessarily have
clarity.
to be more than one person. It
Okay.
would be potentially looking into that, but I would have to review if there's any rules on this
Okay.
directly, and of course, I don't have those right in front of me right now, but I can pull that up. But usually that would be, and because this is a budgetary conversation too, right? So there would have to be looking into whether or not we actually had budget funds set aside for something like this. And if there, and I don't know, I'm sorry, Councilmember Norton, I think you were discussing are you discussing the feasibility study, or are you discussing?
Yes, I'm just asking about a feasibility study.
Okay, so that's a little bit easier, and there's a little less requirements surrounding that, but essentially it would be, the mayor would need to direct staff to
Okay.
prepare something like that to bring to the committee.
Okay.
so basically what is proposing is talking to the mayor about an RFP for a feasibility study for a program that would address
Yes.
this population. Okay.
Okay,
So-
so what you're saying is I need to go to the mayor.
That sounds like it'd be the best course of action.
Okay, so, and if I had understood that, I wouldn't have asked to have it added to the agenda, but that's what Deputy Mayor Honda told me that I needed to do, that I needed to come through Parks and Rec, and that we would direct staff as Parks and Rec to put together an RFP. That's what I understood, so Okay, then thank you very much for that information. I appreciate it.
Oh, and Erica, just so you know, I was just trying to get to exactly what Gianna said so that we would know what the process would be. It wasn't I was for or against or anything, other than to say,
Okay,
how
Linda.
would this work? Thank you.
All right. Okay. All right, I think that we've concluded that discussion, and with no further business, our next meeting will be April 11th at 5 PM right here. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.